Monica was broke. Monica owns a coffee shop in Kansas City, and when she messaged me, she was at her wits' end. She was struggling to make payroll again. When I asked her how much she actually made from the business, she said she hadn't had a paycheck in over 2 years. She was living off credit cards, loans from family, you know how it goes, just to keep things afloat. And what little money that she did take in was actually just to buy the essentials. She certainly wasn't getting ahead on things. For the sake of anonymity, I've changed her name, her city, her business. Even though she gave me permission to share her story, I just want to be respectful of her privacy. So back to Monica. I'd like to tell you that stories like Monica's are unusual, but they really aren't. Everyone is aware of these very grim statistics of business failures that, in case you weren't aware, the Bureau of Labor Statistics consistently reports that roughly 20% of businesses fail within the first 2 years. So when you look at the rate of failure over the course of 5 years, that number more than doubles to roughly 45%. Let's put some actual numbers behind that. According to the Census Bureau, on average, about 4.7 million businesses are started each year. That means as we sit here in the fourth quarter of 2024, for the roughly 5.5 million that were started in 2023, over 2.5 million of those are going to be out of the business in just the next couple of years. That's a staggering amount of struggle going on out there. And according to the Chamber of Commerce, roughly 80% of those businesses are self-financed. So let's stop and think about that for a second. These aren't all affluent people who are out there starting businesses. In fact, people starting businesses represent a complete cross-section of Americans, from race and gender to income and education. So these are not just rich people starting businesses. This means that if it's a cross-section of people starting businesses, these are people, again, just like you and me, who come with all sorts of limiting beliefs and all sorts of cognitive biases. And of particular interest to me right now is their relationship to money. And I find it interesting how many business owners that I have known through the years who have a horrible relationship with money. And their thought is, well, my personal finances might be a mess, but once I get my business up and running, then things will be different. And that was a sentiment that I shared too. And the funny thing is, it was very seldom the case that things got sorted out, because how we are in one area is how we are in most areas. And I couldn't help but think that our friend Monica with the coffee shop in Kansas City, what was her relationship with money before she started the coffee shop business? So I dug into this a little bit, and I was reminded by an excerpt in the book, The Psychology of Money by Morgan Housel. In chapter 1 of the book, the author raised a really good point about how everybody has a different mental model of how money works, right? What might seem odd or crazy to you might seem totally rational to me. And he goes on to make a great point about how it's among the lowest income households in the US spend on average $412 a year on lottery tickets. 412 bucks. That's a crazy number when you consider another statistic that 40% of Americans cannot come up with 400 bucks in an emergency situation. This says a lot about people's relationship with money, and many people with this same mental model of money, well, they're the ones starting businesses. I think the solution to this issue is just recognizing that making money and having money, they're two different sets of skills. And until you learn to have money, the making money problem is not going to make anything better for you. You're simply never going to have enough. There's always going to be a reason as to why you have to spend money on this thing or that thing, right? In other words, you have to understand the psychology of money and understand that money is, by and large, emotional. And it's not until you change that where things are going to start to improve. For example, I had a business owner couple asked me once. Well, let me back up. They were expecting a $35,000 cash settlement to come in, and they had asked me if they should use that $35,000 cash settlement to pay off their credit cards. So they didn't have any other savings, but this would in effect zero everything out minus their mortgage. Now they wouldn't have any cash, but they wouldn't have this credit card debt anymore either. And I told them I thought it was a terrible idea. They thought I was kidding, and honestly, I wasn't. The reason is because nothing had changed for them that would prevent them from running their credit cards back up. I told them it would be way better for them to put the $35,000 in the bank, let it earn a little bit of interest, and then learned to get into the habit of adding to that every single week. And at the same time, they would also start tracking their credit card balances and make sure that those were paid down each and every month and that the balances were lower and lower until they were paid off using cash flow. Granted, that might have taken a while, but the lesson would have been far more permanent. And they assured me, no, the way that they looked at credit cards debt was the way they looked at credit card debt was different, and they're never going to find themselves in credit card debt again because they understood how expensive it was. So I let it go. I made my point, and it was up to them to take whatever decision they were going to and do whatever they felt was right by them. So I found myself in this situation of being in debt and, being in debt and then, paying it down, getting back to zero, getting a little bit of cash and then spending the cash and then getting back into debt and, doing this cycle over and over of being in debt and out of debt over and over and over, probably dozens of times in my life. And things didn't change until I got serious about tracking my finances and having a far different relationship with money. So in about 3 months' time, the business owner couple I was just talking about, they were right back in the same situation with their credit cards again. And I wish they had proved me wrong. Mathematically, I'll admit, paying off the credit cards mathematically was the smart thing to do. But math is not what rules us. Psychology is what rules us. It's our behaviors that rule us. And that's why I wanted to teach them how to handle the most liquid form of wealth that they have, and that is cash. As for Monica, our gal in KC, well, she eventually figured things out. And one of the things she learned from me was a simple suggestion of tracking her cash balances, not just her cash balances, but all of her balances. And when she noticed, especially with her cash, that she struggled really hard to get her cash balance to grow every single month, as I suggested, she started to get really intentional by just watching where her money went. And she was shocked and a little embarrassed to admit that she was spending $100 a month on, want to take a guess? Lottery tickets. She was behaving just like a poor person, so it was no surprise that she was poor. And it took her a while to retrain herself and put that money into a bank account and, but recognizing that she needed to reestablish a new habit, and that was a habit of saving. And it's such an important habit, in fact, that Napoleon Hill, everybody knows Napoleon Hill from who was the author of Think and Grow Rich. Well, he stated that as lesson number 3 in his Law of Success course. So the tracking that Monica learned from me is something that you can access for free in the Business Owner's Money and Finance course. And I will leave a link in the top of the description. In the Business Owner's Money and Finance course, you will learn some accounting basics, some bookkeeping basics, and just some things that you need to know as a business owner and nothing more. I'm not trying to teach you to become a bookkeeper or an accountant. Most accounting courses are way too detailed for business owners. So I'm not trying to teach you anything you don't need to know, just the things that you do need to know as a business owner. Again, I'll leave a link in the description so you can click on that and get free access to it. All right, this video is starting to get a little bit long, and I'm going to land the plane. Have a great rest of your day. I'll see you guys next time.